What is good, peasants? My name is JB, back here today with a brand new tier list. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Pokemon in the game post this previous patch last week, May 30th. Should be a pretty fun time. All things considered, is actually a pretty sizable patch. A lot of Pokemon got changed, and a lot of Pokemon got changed for the better. And yeah, it was all around pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and take a look at our tiers. We have the So Very Poggers tier, our S tier, a large amount of Poggers. We got the Thanos tier, which is perfectly balanced as all things should be, aka our B tier. We got our Could Be More Poggers tier, and we have our Don't tier. Couldn't really think of a way to fit Poggers into that one, my bad. But if you're new around here, we typically use our D tier for the Pokemon that I feel are most in need of a buff, not necessarily the worst Pokemon in the game. So that's one thing. And another thing before we get started, if you're new around here and like my content, please be sure to hit subscribe. We're getting real close to 450 subs, and I would love to hit that number. So if you like the videos, maybe consider hitting the sub button. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah, pretty poggers, I guess you could say. Oh, I'm cringe. Stream on Twitch, by the way, speaking of poggers, twitch.tv/I'mJBWestside. I'm gonna stop plugging myself, and let's go ahead and get to talking. So let's go ahead and start off with stuff that did not get touched in this patch, shall we? Sylveon didn't get touched in this patch. We'll just start off with attackers. Why not? Sylveon, it was, hovering around A tier with the split jungle shenanigans that was going on in competitive. I still think it's a pretty decent Pokemon. I'm gonna put it in the B tier for now. I think it's all around a pretty decent Pokemon. I don't think it's anything special, but Hyper Voice still puts out really good damage. Draining Kiss and Calm Mind are both viable, and Mystical Fire is just kind of there. At least Mystical Fire did a little bit more damage. Also, Sylveon did get changed. It got a little bit of a bug fix, so I said I was going to start with something that didn't get changed, and the first thing I started with was a Pokemon that got changed. Anyway, yeah, it's a very minor change to Mystical Fire. It doesn't really do anything. Like, it supposedly fixes it so it targets wild Pokemon, but it doesn't, so I don't know. Mystical Fire is bad. Don't worry, Mystical Fire anyway, so there you go. Sylveon's pretty decent. Let's just go ahead and get the other evolution out of the way. Espeon. I believe I had it low A on release, and that might be a little bit too generous. I do think it's a pretty high B tier Pokemon. I think it's significantly better than Sylveon, just pretty much because of its Unite move. Sylveon's Unite move is absolutely useless, but Espeon's Unite move is very good, and the Psyshock stuns are great. That's honestly about it in terms of Espeon's kit, though. So, Future Sight and Psybeam are both a little bit meh, and then what's the other one? Sword Power is just bad, so yeah, there's not a whole lot to love about Espeon's kit, but the good things about it are pretty damn good. So I think it's a pretty high B tier choice. Speaking of B tier choices, we'll go ahead and throw a Duraludon in there as well. Dragon Pulse will always be a pretty decent secure move, but I just think there are better Pokemon in the game for that sort of playstyle. And yeah, Flash Cannon's not great. Stealth Rock and Dragon Tail are both fine. It's just, it's not what it used to be, but it's still pretty decent. Speaking of still pretty decent, we'll go ahead and throw Ninetales. I think Ninetales is better than everything we've talked about so far, so we'll put it low A. Obviously, it's the only thing in A tier at the moment, so we'll put it in low A for now. I think its Unite move is significantly better than everything here. I think it has just the freeze kit, just in and of itself, is really good. Just being able to freeze stuff is ridiculous. Both of its builds are viable. The nerfs to Auroraville aren't to the point where it's unplayable, so I think Ninetales is still in a pretty fine spot. All right, Cram. I don't know why they keep doing this to you. Do we really need to keep discussing why Cram's bad? It doesn't do enough damage for how immobile it is, and its damage build is not good. It's just in a rough spot. Its Unite move is in a decent place. Like, its Unite move's okay. I don't know, man. They need to change something about it. I don't know what they need to change. Maybe it's just torquing its damage through the roof and just letting Cram be a demon. That might help. Maybe giving it some sort of mobility like they did with Ninetales, where Ninetales can jump around. I don't know. They need to do something for Cram, and they haven't yet, and it's just unfortunate. So it's still one of the most fun characters to play in the game, though. It's really fun. It's really fun. Pikachu, I think, is a pretty high A tier Pokemon. I think Pikachu's phenomenal. Puts out a lot of damage. Good Unite move. Stuns are annoying. Still a great kit. Pikachu's, as good as it's ever been, and I think it's still, pretty solid A tier Pokemon. All right, now we're getting into the heavy hitters. Venusaur. Ooh, so Solar Beam got buffed. It's not a huge buff to Solar Beam, and I still think Giga Drain Pedal Dance is significantly better just because of the resets and the survivability. Mostly just because I think the Decidueye does Solar Beam's gimmick better. All in all though, man, I think we have our first S tier. I think Venusaur, like, it's just so good. It's so good. It's so very poggers, if you will. Everything about its kit is great. Not a bad part about it. Doesn't die, has great mobility. The only thing it doesn't really have is a dash, but you can run eject button if you want to. I think eject is probably better on Solar Beam builds, but even then, like, it's just an insane Pokemon with an insane kit. So there we go. All right, Cinderace, they buffed it. The Blaze Kick nerf isn't really a nerf. Like, you don't use Blaze Kick for the damage, you use Blaze Kick for the mobility. And yeah, Feint's really good now too. Fireball Plus makes it so you can basically flame charge 100% of the time. It has really high uptime with Fireball Plus. So yeah, Cinderace, they buffed it, of all things. It's, yeah. I'm in pain. I'm in pain. As a known Cinderace hater, I am in pain. So Greninja, I haven't really noticed the Surf nerfs. So yeah, I think specifically for Solo Cube, I think it's still an S tier. I think it's still one of, if not the best junglers in the game. I think it's very good. So yeah, it's phenomenal. It's unbelievable. I like it a lot. Okay, Decidueye. I think it's borderline S tier. I think just we're at a point in the meta where there are no score shields. There are virtually no buddy barriers at the moment on a lot of things, thus meaning the meta is incredibly squishy, and Spirit Shackle absolutely deletes squishy. Spirit Shackle is 1 to 2-shotting everything, like every single attacker on the board. Spirit Shackle is 2-shotting. Like, it's ridiculous. It sets up so many KOs, still the best stealing move in the game, and its Unite move is at a point where it is very usable in fights. Like, if you know how to launch a good Decidueye Unite move into a fight you're not in, it's like if you come up on a fight and just throw a Decidueye Unite on a team that's like jumping your buddies that are defending your goal, just show up a little bit behind it and erase people. Like, its Unite move is in a really good spot. It's in a really good spot at the start of that fight. Like, say your team's all fighting by the bottom bush, you just come in from the top, throw in your Unite move. Man, Decidueye is very, very, very good. All right, and then our last attacker is Gardevoir. Gardevoir got maybe my favorite change this patch. Evolving at 8 is so good. Unfortunately, they didn't give it its Unite move at 8. If they give it its Unite move at 8, it would be GG. It'd be the easiest S tier of the video. However, just evolving at level 8 is really, really, really good for it. I had it in B tier, low A. I'm gonna put it at the top of A tier now. Basically just because I don't feel like they made it more viable in lane, which is really good for it. But the Side Shock buffs aren't really that significant to the point that I think it's anything broken. I still think Future Sight is the better build just because the resets, you can put out more damage like consistently. So I do think Future Sight is still better. So for that reason, I don't think it's quite S tier, although we haven't seen it in a competitive environment yet. We haven't seen any tournaments just yet, or at least I haven't, to see a point where Gardevoir could be the best jungler in the game, which I think it has a chance to be the best jungler in the game evolving at 8. So we haven't seen that quite yet. So I'm going to be a little bit conservative and put it at the very, very top of A tier. All right, moving on. Let's do supporters next because this is a pretty easy one. Hoopa's still S tier. Yeah, they nerfed the hell out of its Unite moves damage. Doesn't matter. Still has Hyperspace Hole. Still brings teams places. It's Hoopa. It's not going anywhere in the competitive meta. In solo queue, it's probably closer to here, maybe even here in solo queue specifically, because you can't rely on your teammates using your holes or your Unite move. But in a competitive sense and in how good of a Pokemon it is, since despite solo queue, I think it's unbelievable, fantastic, top tier, one of the best Pokemon in the game. And I think Blissey is also one of the best Pokemon in the game. They didn't change anything about it. They reined in the Egg Bomb damage a little bit, and it does feel good, but you're still getting a ton of stuns off with it, which is ridiculous. You're healing obscene amounts now with the soft bullet cooldown, which is something I was asking for a while back before they made it so where you get your charges stacked between Egg Bomb and soft bullet. So I was calling for them to lower the cooldown, but now you get to use it more often and they lowered the cooldown, so maybe they slightly over buffed it. But yeah, Blissey's insane. Blissey's unbelievable. It's very, very good. So that's one of the best Unite moves in the game. Oh yeah, and Safeguard Helping Hand is still ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So Yeah. The Blissey, not a bad part of its kit. Eldegoss, just by power creeps, I think is at the top of B tier, low A tier. You hardly see Eldegoss in competitive anymore. It's not really ran. There's literally no reason to run it over Blissey. Blissey just does everything Eldegoss does, but better in a competitive sense. In a solo queue sense, it's still a pretty solid Pokemon. Still puts out decent damage and decent healing. So I think it's still a pretty good Pokemon, but it's definitely fallen from grace a little bit. Wigglytuff, same sort of deal. I'm still gonna put it in A tier though, just because seeing at the end of the day, it's more in a more solo queue, in more uncoordinated meta games, basically just solo to a trio queue. It's still really good. It's still extremely disruptive with Sing and Cute Charm, so I think it's still worthy of A tier versus uncoordinated teams. Like if you're running a trio queue, slap a Wiggly on your team and just dominate, just ruin people's fun. So yeah, that's what we do with that. And then last for the supporters, Mr. Mime. We're close. We're really close with Mr. Mime. We are very close. So I'm gonna put it in C tier. It could be more poggers, and that is because it's okay. It's okay. Confusion is in a place where it's, you know, all right. Psychic is still bad. The walls are decent. The walls are gonna be what the walls are. A guard swap. Guard swap is so close to being broken, it's insane. Like guard swap plus is one of the best moves in the game. Is being able to heal your teammates that much. Obviously it's a little bit rough in terms of having to, you know, stop to aim, so it's a little bit harder to use in solo queue. And also guard swap plus you get a 13. If they ever switch it so you get guard swap plus at 11, like if they switch the order you get your plus moves in, this Pokemon I could see shooting up to A or S tier just with guard swap, because guard swap it's close to being really good. It's not there yet. I think it has potential. There's something there. We're getting to a point. It's close. It's very close to being a OP, but we're not there yet. I think it's pretty good. Give it a couple more patches and we might be dealing with a demon. That's all I'm gonna say. Moving on to, let's do Speedster since there's only 4 of those as well. Absol, I think it's still a pretty fine B tier Pokemon. Really strong early game. Really good without all the shields on the game. Pretty rough late. It's better late game than it used to be, but it's still obscenely squishy and hard to do too much with. Bird, I'm gonna go ahead and put Bird in A tier. Ridiculously high burst damage, ridiculously high mobility, still solid, gets to see not move all the time, pretty good Pokemon. Zeraora, I'm gonna put it also in B tier. I'm sick of having this same conversation with you guys, but I'm gonna reiterate this in every tier list I do. Yes, it does need its level up moves lowered to, you know, the 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. I will give you that. It needs that. I agree. Wild Charge is one of the most broken moves in the game. All right. None. I've made this point several times. If you want to hear that point delved into more, go watch any other tier list, or I have like a video where I talk about how I would fix, air quote, fix every Pokemon in the game. If you want me to hear me talk more about Zeraora, go watch one of those videos. I think it's ridiculous that people think Zeraora is bad. That's basically the gist of it. All right, moving on to Gengar. Gengar. Okay, if you've been watching my streams the last few days of me posting this, I have a big time hate relationship with Gengar. I think Gengar is generally speaking a pretty bad Pokemon. That's because 90% of Gengar players are terrible in my games. However, the 10% of Gengars that know how to play this Pokemon are absolutely dominant, and it really annoys me when I get destroyed by one of those good Gengar players. For some reason, it just tilts me more than any other Pokemon in the game. It's because I have had like a disproportionate amount of other characters. I know this happens probably with everyone. Like everyone has this character where if it's on your team, they're terrible. The second you go up against one, they dominate. I've had a disproportionate amount of Gengars be that player to me. Like specifically speaking, this is just one instance. I had a game where Gengar was my jungler and he did like 45, 50k or something like that in jungle. And in the opposite lane that I was in, the other team had a lane Gengar who did 90,000 damage. It's stuff like that that makes me really not like this Pokemon, but I think it's in a decent place. I've been practicing with it a little bit, you know, just trying to figure out why this happens. And I think what it boils down to is it's honestly just a really hard character to play and a really hard character to master. It's in a rough spot in terms of it takes a lot of skill to get a lot of value out of Gengar. Basically, it's incredibly squishy and it's really good at eliminating one Pokemon, but it can't really do anything after. I think a big change to Gengar, specifically to its Shadow Ball Dream Eater build, if you want to make Gengar, you know, the Pokemon that a lot of new players think Gengar is, you know, a S tier. That's some of the interactions I've had in my chat. People think Gengar is ridiculous. So I think what you need to do is give Gengar the Charizard treatment. A little while back, Charizard got a change to where its Fire Blast and Flamethrower could be used while moving. Give Gengar that, so it can use Shadow Ball and Dream Eater while moving. You have to stop and people just get out of range. I think that could help Gengar a lot, help a lot of the bad Gengars that I see anyway. So I think that could be a nice little quality of life adjustment to Gengar. Just, you know, something little like that. I think that'd be nice. I think Gengar, it has one of the highest ceilings in the game, specifically for solo queue. In competitive 5-mans, Gengar's garbage. Absolute terrible. In competitive 5-mans, same thing with Zeraora, but I'm just talking in general, like solo duo trio. Like Gengar's a pretty okay Pokemon, and it has a really, really high solo queue ceiling. So we're gonna go ahead, throw it in B tier. Let's move on to our defenders, I guess. Yeah, defenders are pretty boring. Snorlax, buddy, I think you're in a pretty rough spot right now. It's not really your fault. It's just a lot of the game is so heavily mobility based, and Snorlax is really, really bad against mobility. It'll have its moments, it'll have its games where it can absolutely dominate with a block flail build or a block build and just put in a lot of work. But a lot of games, you're not really doing a whole lot. You're kind of just getting walked around, people are just kind of ignoring you. You're kind of just a damage sponge. So yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. It's really rough against, you know, basically everything in the S tier. A lot of the speedsters and stuff, it really struggles with. It really struggles with, you know, a lot of bursty things too, like the Decidueye and Gardevoir. So not the best against CC either. You get where I'm coming from. Like, it has its moments where it can be really good, but it struggles against a lot of prominent Pokemon in the game. So I think it's probably in the worst spot it's been in a very, very long time. Speaking of glow up, I don't know where we talked about that, but Crustal, man, Crustal's okay. Crustal's pretty decent at the moment. I'm gonna leave it in C tier just because I still think Greedent does a lot of its job better, but I do think Crustal's, you know, it's not bad for what it is. I think just most of the time, I think it's a pretty good solo queue Pokemon. If the old scoring was still in the game, I think Crustal would be one of the best solo queue Pokemon in the game. But with the way things are right now, I think it's very high C, very low B. X-Scissor getting a cooldown reduction is really cool. It's really good at being able to push people around. That's really fun. Its Unite move is still okay. It just struggles with scoring. It just struggles with staling and being annoying. It's just not as good at that sort of playstyle as Greedent is. So I think it struggles a little bit because of that. So we'll leave it in the all C tier. Moving on, let's go ahead and talk about Tree. Tree's fantastic. I love Tree. I really love Tree. It's borderline A tier for me. Borderline A tier. I'm gonna put Tree in A tier, man. I'm gonna put Tree in A tier just because it is unbelievably hard to KO a really good Trevenant. A really good Trevenant can absolutely dominate a game just because you don't die. You just straight up do not die on this Pokemon. Getting your curse resets for just getting unlimited Horn Leeches, basically, you're healing all the time. Decent enough in objective fights. Again, I'm gonna keep reiterating this. I still don't think we've seen the full potential of it as one of the best Unite moves in the game. We have not seen the peak of what you can do with this Pokemon's Unite move just yet. I think it's ridiculous. So I love Tree, doesn't die, really fun, really good Pokemon. Putting it in the A tier, don't care, that's my tier list, come at me. Speaking of decent Pokemon, we're gonna go ahead and put Mamo in B tier. I think it's the definition of a B tier defender. Really good against, you know, more brawly things, really fun to just walk into some squishies and delete them. Well, not really delete them, just keep them from playing the game with freezes and crowd control and stuff like that. But really struggles against range, really struggles against, you know, what's the word? Aside from, there's another thing, it's not good against bursty stuff. Like, it's really bad against, you know, stuff like Gardevoir, Decidueye. But you get close to a Pikachu or something, if you get in close to these things, it's okay. It's, you know, this is just the definition of B tier. It's solid, it just has bad matchups from time to time. Slowbro. Scald got buffed. For some reason, I still think serves better, but Scald's viable. It's more fun solo queue build. Gets its Unite move more often. Was already really good. Still an A tier Pokemon. Greedent, same thing. Still an A tier Pokemon. Pretty damn good. No real complaints for me, other than the fact that I despise playing against it. I cannot play Covet Belch, but I am well aware that it is a phenomenal build. I cannot figure out how people fucking aim this thing. So If you guys want to give me some gradient tips, please leave them in the comments, because for the life of me, I cannot figure out how the hell to aim this stupid squirrel. I hate gradient. I hate gradient so much, but I will fully admit that it is broken and very good. All right, and now the big thing from the defenders that of course is Clefable. No, just kidding. Blastoise got hit with a massive nerf. It did get a buff to Hydro Pump, which is cool, but the rapid spin changes are pretty significant. It's still decent. Its Unite move change is pretty big as well, but all in all, I think it's still a pretty damn good Pokemon. Oh, man, I think it's really, really good still. Do I think it's still worthy of A tier though? It was, you know, up here. It was one of the best Pokemon in the game, and these aren't ranked in order, by the way. Shouldn't have waited till 20 minutes into the video to say that. But man, I think Blastoise is still really, really good. I'm gonna put it at the very top of B tier, and I know these aren't really ranked within each other, but I just don't think it's quite A tier. I think it's still solid. Like Surf Hydro Pump is good. It's a good build. It's a more defender build. It's not as much of a fun build as, you know, the previous shenanigans that were going on with Rapid Spin Water Spout. But Rapid Spin Water Spout is still playable. Just doesn't do as much damage, and you are a little bit more prone to CC nowadays. But it's okay. It's still pretty solid Pokemon. Definitely not bad by any means, but definitely not one of the best Pokemon in the game like it was. Speaking of one of the best Pokemon in the game, I don't need to talk about it. Move on. They didn't nerf it. It's not a fucking nerf. They're never gonna nerf the scaling, and it'll never be bad. Okay. Charizard, I think, you know, it's still one of the best Unite moves in the game. Flare Blast Fire Punch is viable. All of its builds are viable, so it's really cool. Better in the jungle. Still a really bad laner, but pretty good. I think it's still worthy of the A tier. Chompy Boy, love it. One of my favorite characters, one of the best characters. I think it's great. You're gonna, you know, struggle against a lot of things, but if you're able to get in, you know, land some of your dragon combos, land some of your, you know, knock-ups with Dig, like, it can still do a lot of things. And Tsunami was pretty good as well. Like, if you know how to play Garchomp, you're gonna have a good time with Garchomp anytime, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's pretty rough. All right, Machamp, still an easy A tier Pokemon, still borderline S tier. Just, it's not Lucario. That's really all it is. It's just not Lucario. Moving on to these guys. So, man, I love a lot of the all-arounders. I really, really do. I don't think there's a bad one. Azumarill, I used to have like in B and C tier, or C and D tier. This buff, I don't think it's that significant, but I do think it moves it up to B tier. I think it's pretty good. I don't think it's great. I think it's gimmick, like its crit gimmick against more than one person is still a little bit rough. Like, it's still really bad in multi-person team fights. It's a little bit better. It's just not, like, it's not better than any other all-arounder, if you get what I mean. Like, its playstyle is cool, but every other all-arounder does that better still, in my opinion. The one thing Azumarill has is it gets its Unite move a lot, which is really cool, but that doesn't really play too much of a role for me. Moving on to these guys, Aegislash, still in a phenomenal spot. It's it got, what did it get changed? Like, it's Jesus Christ, that's one of the dumbest. Basically, Sacred Sword got changed a little bit to where it doesn't do as much knock up. It doesn't do as much, I guess, damage, technically speaking, but still really fun, really good kit. Just absolutely shreds fat things. I believe the HP scaling got tweaked a little bit. I don't know if that's true, but you know, it's still pretty good. SEREENA, I think, is in a really, really, really good spot now. I think it's right behind Machamp. I think it's borderline S tier. It can definitely do some of the solo top things that Lucario can do. I just think Machamp and Lucario do that job a little bit better. And Aegislash as well. It doesn't do it quite as well. Aegislash and Charizard are more junglers than these three are top laners. But yeah, SEREENA is in a fantastic spot. The nice little attack buff, like SEREENA was already seeing a little bit more play just because it has such good sustain and is so good against squishies with Stomp. Like, Stomp just deletes squishies. I've been having a ton of fun playing SEREENA. Yeah, it's great stacking, great scaling. Yeah, SEREENA is back. I think Triple Axle is viable again with this attack buff. It's really good at, again, just shredding squishies. SEREENA is very good against a lot of these guys. Like, a lot of these guys, your ADCs, your junglers, these squishies. Yeah, SEREENA, very, very good against those things. So SEREENA, like a lot of the things I get asked, like I get asked this occasionally on stream, is what Pokemon should I pick for, you know, grinding solo queue. I think SEREENA is towards the top of that list right now. Like SEREENA is phenomenal, very good in an uncoordinated setting and also very good in a team setting. So I love SEREENA at the moment. And now Dragonite. I hate to put 5 all-arounders in A tier, but I'm gonna do it. I think Dragonite's really good right now as well. The attack buff was pretty minor, but still really solid. Like you just do more damage, and Hyper Beam is really good at secures. It's a dominant team fighter. It's a borderline ADC on the likes of Decidueye and Cinderace. It's not as good as those characters, but it's better at that playstyle than Duraludon now. Obviously it's an all-rounder, so it's not exactly the same, but that's the same sort of playstyle of this, you know, ADC carry that's good at secures. Dragonite's the best in the game at right now, aside from Decidueye. So yeah, it's really good. I like it a lot. Love me some Dragonite. Another one of my favorite characters. I guess I'm an all-arounder, man, because I love all of the all-arounders, man. Like, bro, they're all in very, very good spots right now, and I am very excited with how the meta is shaping up. I think it's really fun. This is maybe the most healthy the meta game's ever been, and I'm really enjoying it. So let me know what you think. Let me know if I ranked your favorite character too high or too low, and I will catch you all on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.